Good morning. At the end of Module 2, everybody had to complete a coaching artifact. One of the things that I wanted to do was share with everybody some highlights from some of the different coaching artifacts that people submitted. As with teaching, you improve as a designer and implementer of PL by getting to see other PL, but often as a coach, you don't frequently get to see the PL that other coaches make, nor do you often get feedback on your own PL. Being able to see some of the choices that people make in other PL is a great way to be inspired for choices you can make in future PL of your own. One of the things that Kelly did that I wanted to highlight was she included a slide that named the specific standards that were being addressed in the particular PL. Everyone had a slide that made sure that the outcomes for the presentation were shown, and gave information about the Van Healy levels. But one of the things that I like that Kelly did was include the specific wording of the standards for different grade levels. So that way the teachers can see how what they are doing relates to the specific standards they're teaching. The other purpose that this serves is whether this presentation is done with grades K1 or 2, it allows teachers at grade levels to see the standards that the other grade levels teach. Sometimes teachers don't know the standards that are taught before or after the grade level they teach. And a PL like this is a great opportunity to have first grade teachers who may never have taught kindergarten or grade 2 know here's what your students learned in kindergarten before they came to you. Here is what they're going to have to do in grade 2 the year after you teach them. Elisa had a description of all of the Van Healy levels, as many of you did. And then after the presentation of the levels, one of the things she had the participants do was actually consider their own students and think about, based on the descriptions of them, where do the students in their own class fall? This is a great way to have participants really think of some practical uses for the information that they're sharing, and hopefully be a springboard to a conversation about how you might differentiate for students at those different levels. Shelby, in her slides that showed information about the different levels, she did a great job of illustrating some key elements related to those levels outside of just the bulleted information that she shared. So in this case, one of the things that she did was have a particular speech bubble about the green figure with some information about how students at level 0 might consider that particular figure. Teachers who don't work with students in kindergarten or are not experienced with students at level 0 might not realize that a student looking at the green figure would not recognize it as a shape if they're working at level 0. So this is a great way to just give some additional information to the participants and spur some conversation, hopefully. Mackenzie, as she went through her presentation and had the teachers consider level 0 and do an activity related to it, and level 1 and do an activity related to it, etc. After each one, she had a slide that allowed the participants to process what they had done. And she had 3 particular questions that were repeated on these slides that related to misconceptions students would have, how it could be modified to relate to their own room, and how the activity supported learners at a particular level. She did this after each level. And the other thing that Mackenzie did that I really liked was she varied what they did slightly. So while the questions were the same, the first time they did a stop and jot, and then they did a turn and talk, and then they did a group debrief. So she had the same debriefing questions, which related to all of them. So it provided nice repetition to the questions. So the teachers knew what they were going to have to do after each activity. But varying the process each time from a stop and jot to a turn and talk to a debrief brought some variety into how those reflection questions were being implemented, and is a great model of varying the kinds of ways you have students think about and consider and reflect on information, so that you don't bore the students by doing the same thing over and over again the same way. Natalie was one of a number of people that included a quote into her presentation. She used this as a reflection slide near the end of her presentation, to really highlight a key idea related to the information. In this case, that students need to really spend more time classifying and talking about the characteristics of shapes and not just naming them. And a quote is always a great conversation point, either at the beginning, middle, or end of a presentation, to help teachers process and synthesize the information that they're learning. Paul had a concluding activity that was a math task, a quick math task for teachers to engage in. Just as beginning your presentation with immediately having participants do math is a great idea, having a quick math task at the end of the presentation is a nice way to get people active when their energy might be lagging and give them another idea of something they can do in their room. In this case, it was a quick draw that Paul had them do, which is a great thing that you can do at the beginning or end of a class. And it was a nice way to have the teachers be able to synthesize some of the language that they learned, as well as provide them an idea for something they can do in their classroom. At the end of Julie's presentation, she ended on levels 3 and 4, gave an explanation of them, but rather than really go into depth and activities on these levels, since these are levels at which students in elementary school are less likely to be working, instead, she had a really thoughtful discussion question, which is to have the participants think about their high school geometry experience and consider if they felt they were sufficiently prepared for that. Really great reflection question. People feel, from my own experience, people feel very passionately one way or the other about their high school geometry experience. Some very positive, some very negative. But this is an awesome way for participants to really think about what they have learned about the levels and what they need to make sure they're doing, so that the students that they're sending along to middle school and then high school are indeed prepared for the kind of rigor that they're going to have to be thinking with, as they learn geometric concepts in middle and high school. Great work with your presentations, and I hope some of these ideas are ones that inspire you in future PL that you design and implement.